Primetime Local News, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime Local News. Saskatchewan is reporting 10 new cases of COVID-19. 6 are in Saskatoon, 1 in the far northeast, 2 in Regina, and 1 in the central west zone. 146 are considered active, 2 of those in the region that includes Lloydminster and North Battleford. 9 people are in hospital, 1 of those in intensive care. 9 more people have recovered. Vehicle theft is down in the latest Lloydminster RCMP crime update, but criminal code numbers are up. Eric Bay has more from Council.
Offenses for failing to follow conditions after an arrest have increased substantially in 2020, as Lloydminster RCMP made it a priority this year.
They've been out chasing down failures to appear and people that are on recognizance and conditions that are failing to keep those conditions. So our RCMP are enforcing the laws, and they're dealing with those people that have outstanding matters or have been involved with the law before, which brings comfort knowing that they are following up.
Another reason for the higher numbers is increased staff, with 49 regular members on the force.
We are seeing a strong presence from our detachment, and that's work that's ongoing with not just the detachment. The detachment commander is in discussions with management of the RCMP, and certainly we raise that with some discussions with management as well to ensure that our staffing levels are adequate to meet the needs of our community. An
area that has also increased is calls involving mental health, which has skyrocketed up 61% in 2020 compared to 2019. The mayor says the city will be working with both the provincial and federal governments for more mental health support in the city.
We find ourselves in a position of being a conduit, especially our bi-provincial city challenges us having not just one but 2 different provincial governments agencies working with mental health and through the health system and services. So we'll continue to endeavor and lobby and support their efforts through the RCMP, working with the partner groups that are there.
The report reveals car accidents are down this year, which is being attributed to the pandemic. Eric Bay, Primetime Local News.
Our Shelby Clark spoke with Tri-Spirit Creations to get more details on a drum building workshop they're hosting this Saturday.
I'm speaking with Chris Cunningham, owner of Tri-Spirit Creations. How are you today?
I'm really good. I feel good. I don't know. I love every day, so I enjoy life. Look at the blessings that we have around us.
Perfect. So what can residents expect to be all involved in the drum building workshops?
Well, I think it's finding that connection to the drum, and that connection to oneself is what I get from the drum. I love the drum. I've been called to the drum ever since I didn't grow up with the drum, but in my early 30s, my wife actually went to a workshop. And even though I'm First Nation, a lot of our First Nation culture was kind of taken away from us with colonization. Like it was against the law to practice some of our culture in the past, in the recent past, like in the 1980s and stuff like that. So part of our culture was missing, and growing up, I always felt a sense of missing a piece of myself, even though I hunted and trapped, and like I'm First Nation from Sucker Creek First Nation, but the drum wasn't a big part of my personal family. So when my wife went to a workshop, I think I was 32 years old, and she brought a drum back into the house, and when she hit that drum beat, it was something through that vibration that just went right through me. It was an instant call in that I needed the energy of the drum for myself, for just my person. At that time, there was no desire to make a drum. It was to connect to that energy, that healing energy that I was feeling. So for me, it's to help people connect to that energy, and part of it is finding yourself in the drum and all the benefits that drumming gives a person. Yeah.
And who else will be hosting this workshop with you guys this weekend?
Well, Tara Hardy from Heart and Soul Essentials.
And all the spots are full for this weekend, just for residents that don't know?
Yeah, that's correct.
And how many workshops have there been so far?
Sometimes I do about, I don't know, I guess I've been doing workshops for maybe since 2015. And in the first year, I probably only did a few, like 3, but some months we do between like 1 to 3 workshops in a month. Some months we don't do any. So it's kind of hard for me to give you an exact number, but if I was to guess, I would probably say I've done maybe 30 workshops in the last few years, several years.
Okay. And how do you avoid COVID-19 for these workshops just to help keep residents safe?
Well, we bring masks and we have the hand sanitizer protocol. So and then we try and socially distance as much as possible. But to build a drum, usually we use 2 people. So we ask when the participants are building the drums that they're wearing masks if they're within that 6 feet distance from each other. Yeah.
And has the support for these workshops remained strong since COVID-19 happened?
Well, we at the first start of COVID-19, we canceled a bunch of workshops just because we were all like everybody else in the lockdown, and we didn't know how serious the COVID-19 was at the time. Mm-hmm. And so we canceled a bunch of workshops at the start, but now that the restrictions and the guidelines are in place, then we've started up again. Yeah.
Can you kind of explain more on the process of what happens in these workshops?
Yeah. Well, we start out with an opening circle, get to know everybody in the group. I share a bit of drum teachings, and then I bring all the materials already pre-cut and ready to build. So then from the drum teachings, we'll go into the drum building. After we all put the drums together, we do like a smudging, a blessing on the drums. And then after that, we'll do a kind of closing circle. I like to also use the flute, the native flute, as one of my sacred tools. So I also do a native flute prayer song at the end of the workshop, and then we'll do a closing circle at the end, and then everyone gets to take their drums home with them.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Chris.
You're welcome.
Now our Connor Chan will take a look at your weather forecast.
Thanks very much, Jasmine. Taking a look right now, 17 degrees right now. We have a little bit of cloud coverage, but for the most part, it's been a very, very warm day outside today. The sun was out. Clear skies for most areas around the city, with some winds, though, a little bit lighter than what we've seen in the past, sitting at 13 kilometers an hour coming in from the northwest there. Take a look at temperatures right now here in our area, though. 17, as I mentioned, for Lloydminster. As we look out further west, Vermilion and Vegreville, St. Paul sitting at 18 degrees. Edmonton at 19 right now, with Lac La Biche also sitting at 17 degrees. Bonnyville right now sitting at 16 degrees, 17 for Provost, 18 for Macklin, and in North Battleford, 16 in St. Walburg, with 17 also for Green Lake and Meadow Lake as well. Take a look at the satellite radar map. Not a whole lot to report on. Fairly clear skies, as we'll see in the next coming hours or so. Well, again, a little bit of activity there in some cloud coverage in that Edmonton area. But as you look at the school day forecast for tomorrow, we'll have a much cloudier day, starting in that morning area where it starts at 7 degrees with it at 8 a.m. and then 12 degrees at recess time, and then 15 degrees for lunch. And then by the time it's the school's out around that 3 o'clock range, we should be at our daytime high there of 19 degrees. But as we look at overnight, North Battleford, 5 degrees, so fairly cooler compared to what we saw the last few days there. 20 degrees tomorrow for the daytime high there, with a lot of sun and some cloud coverage there. Cold Lake, clear skies overnight at 5 degrees, sitting at 20 degrees tomorrow for them as the daytime high. So we're going to see those 19 to 20 degree ranges in our area, and we'll see 20 degrees tomorrow for our daytime high, but with that cloud coverage following suit as well, with 5 degrees overnight for us here tonight in Lloydminster. Now here's what we could see over the next 3 days. We'll still be fairly warm up in those high teen areas, especially on Thursday with that high of 19 degrees. We'll have a little bit of a warmer morning with sitting at 10 degrees as our daytime low, and then 17 on Friday with a little bit more sun expected there as of course we get ready for the weekend. So high of 17 Friday there and a low of 7, so we'll have some fairly cooler mornings there just before the weekend there. But that's a first look at your weather forecast. We'll have more primetime local news after the break.
Welcome back. A community initiative looks to help women in the community grow their businesses through various services they offer. Connor Chan has more on Project Gazelle.
Well, joining us today here on Primetime Local News is Glennis Reeves, the project coordinator for Project Gazelle. Glennis, I just want to start off by just you giving us a little bit of a summary of what Project Gazelle is.
So Project Gazelle is a project that is funded through the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy Ecosystem Fund. It was a fund that the federal government announced probably about 18 months to 2 years ago. And so there were two pieces to that fund. One was that women entrepreneurs could actually apply for grants to expand their businesses, especially if they were looking at global markets. And the other piece, the ecosystem fund, was for organizations that support entrepreneurs to apply for funding to expand their programming to help women entrepreneurs. So Lloydminster Community Futures put in a grant application and was successful with that. But it's not just this area. Our geographical area actually covers parts of northwest Saskatchewan and all of northern Alberta. So we actually serve 15 different community futures regions, with Lloydminster's Community Futures being the lead for it, as well as we have other economic development organizations such as incubators. We have some economic development organizations through some of the towns that we serve. And as well, we have other partners such as Chamber of Commerce's that work with us through Project Gazelle.
I know the project has just started over a year ago, but what's been the response like from business women in the community to use the tools that Project Gazelle has to offer?
So there were three things that we said we would do when we put in our grant application. One is we said that we would either expand or build new co-working spaces that have a real focus on services for women entrepreneurs. In our first year, our expansion was actually in Lloydminster with Startup Lloydminster, and our new incubator was actually in Hinton. We also said that we would introduce entrepreneurship to a number of women. Our project actually goes to 2023, and so by that time we hope to have introduced entrepreneurship to 4,000 women. In our first year, we've introduced entrepreneurship to 1,400 women, and of those, we're hoping approximately 1,500 will actually start down the entrepreneurship path, which means they'll either do some type of training with us, they'll either do some of our enhanced coaching, and right now we have about 225 women who actually are Project Gazelle clients with us across that geographical area.
With COVID-19, it was tough on many businesses, of course, across the country. Was there anything that Project Gazelle did to kind of help the women that they do help in terms of some sort of aid by any chance that they use to help them get through these tough times?
So for us with Project Gazelle, we don't actually give out funding, but what we do is provide supports. And one of the things that's great about our project is we have the flexibility and freedom to actually pivot. So when there's a couple of things. So first off, because we serve such a large geographical area, we were set up before COVID to do everything virtually. So for example, if we have a Project Gazelle workshop going on in Jasper, we want to make sure that everyone within our Project Gazelle area can access it. So we were already set up to do things virtually, which is very good when COVID hit. But what we did do is we pivoted with some of our services. So not just for new entrepreneurs, but for existing businesses as well. Included in some of our services are we can provide some mental wellness and mental health supports. We have a health and wellness coach who can actually work one-on-one with women entrepreneurs to help them with life balance, some of the things they're dealing with that. We also introduced a tool called the Lean Canvas. And the Lean Canvas can really get businesses to take a look at how they have to pivot quickly in our changing times. So we have a Lean Canvas coach who is available for businesses to work with. We also heard from a lot of our women entrepreneurs that there are lots of new things coming out in regards to human resources and what they need to do for staff, what they need to do for customers. So one of the things we did is we introduced a professional HR consultant who once again can provide consulting services to our majority female owned businesses to help them make sure they've got all the policies and procedures in place. And the fourth thing we're working on is a online marketplace that's specifically for Gazelle clients. So there'll be other ways for them to market their businesses than the traditional ways that they were doing. And of course, that, as I said, that's open to our new entrepreneurs that are part of the program, and it's also open to any business that's majority women owned. So as long as 50% of the businesses women owned, they can access our Gazelle services. So those were some of the things we introduced very quickly when COVID hit to try to help our women entrepreneurs in the area that we serve.
And lastly, if any business women are watching and they want to maybe seek some guidance through Project Gazelle, how can they do so?
All they need to do is they can call the Community Futures office in Lloydminster. We also have a website that they can go to, and they can contact us through the website. Or through any of our incubators. So through Startup Lloydminster, which is a Gazelle incubator, because in addition to those COVID services, we also provide some enhanced types of coaching. We use a lot of really unique business planning tools. We do a variety of different types of workshops. We're hosting a retreat in our Hinton, our Yellowhead West Community Futures in October for women to take a look at how to build success on their own terms and around goal setting and that type of thing. And so there's lots of different services that we provide. Another one that we're just starting on is we're starting to try to introduce what we call Cafe Inks. And Cafe Inks will be a partnership with a business in a community that has a small cafe or coffee shop where women can come. There'll be equipment for them to use through Project Gazelle. They'll be able to access our programming. And so as much as possible, we're trying to make sure that we've got that outreach, especially in this time, so people can come together as a community virtually or in person as long as we socially distance and access the various services.
Well, Glennis, I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for sharing with us all the great information that you have with Project Gazelle and all the opportunities that you can help for many business women in our community. So thank you.
And thank you, Connor, for contacting us. We are always happy to talk about our project.
Now here are your stock market prices for today.
Today's oil prices are brought to you by First General Services.
For the first time since 1931, the U.S. Open took place in September. Last weekend ended with Bryson DeChambeau winning his first career major and joined an elite club of Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus, being the only three to win the U.S. Amateur, U.S. Open, and an NCAA championship. Our Evan Kenny has all the details from the weekend.
Well, this past weekend was the 120th U.S. Open at Winged Foot Golf Club in New York. Joining me to break it down is Marty Wheaton of Wheaton Golf Services, as well as of the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Club. Marty, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Evan.
Now, Bryson DeChambeau was the eventual winner, finishing at 6 under. This is his first major. Marty, what did you see out of DeChambeau, and did you expect him to win going into this weekend?
I think what we've seen out of Bryson is a total change and transformation in his body and the way that he plays, and it's kind of similar to the way Tiger Woods overpowered golf courses when he first came out in 1997. Certainly, a lot of the experts listening to people in the industry, we didn't think under par was going to be there at Winged Foot. He was just playing so long. The rough was unbelievable out there. So scoring conditions, and for 6 under, he pretty much lapped the field there, and watching the way that he did it, no one thought that overpowering that golf course was going to happen, but certainly with Bryson, he did.
Yeah, with DeChambeau, obviously his drive is what everybody's talking about. He averaged 325 yards off the tee this weekend alone, but he didn't hit those fairways. As you just mentioned, the rough is tough at Winged Foot, and he only hit the fairways 22 times over all 4 days there. I mean, obviously it didn't affect him, but how much does that rough affect other golfers?
Well, when you're going 30, 40, 50 yards back of where Bryson's playing from, you're now, instead of hitting a wedge, you're hitting a 5-iron, and the difference between those two are unbelievable. When you come in with a short iron, your chances with the loft getting out of the rough is a lot better for sure. But some of the players that are coming out of there with 5 or 6-iron, there's no chance. You're pretty much laying up to the fairway and trying to make par from there.
Now, only 39% of all fairways by everybody in the field were hit this weekend, which is the lowest in 30 years since that stat has been taken. Now, Marty, this tournament was obviously played in September, where usually the U.S. Open is played in June. Do you think that had to play into it at all?
I think the U.S. Open always plays very hard, very fast, so that kind of narrows your landing areas. Whenever it's soft conditions, it's a lot easier to be accurate, but certainly with Winged Foot, you have a lot of dog legs, you have hard, fast conditions, and you see a lot of the players hitting through the fairways, so it's just really tough to hit fairways, and standing on some of those tee boxes, I'm sure the nerves were going for a lot of the players.
Now, Marty, any surprises from you, good or bad, coming out of the field?
For me, I am a huge Tiger Woods fan, so obviously was hoping for him to do better, but it just seems with his body now, he just can't put in the repetitions that he normally would. He was out of it right from the get-go. That was a big surprise for me. I thought he would play a little bit better at Winged Foot, and having that knowledge, and the game can be there, but the rest of the players that I think a lot of us thought that were going to be there, as far as Xander Schauffele, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, a lot of those players that have the elite games were certainly there with a chance to win.
Yeah, for myself, I was a little disappointed seeing lefty Phil Mickelson not make that cut. I was really hoping he was going to go for that career Grand Slam, and as a fellow lefty, it would have just been a little extra sweet for myself. Now, Marty, as a golf fan, 6 majors this year, with this one being the first one. The next one is in November, and that will be the Masters. How exciting is that, just to think we have 5 majors still ahead of us?
For golf fans, it's going to be fantastic, especially in Canada. We get to watch some major championship golf with snow on the ground, which is a wonderful thing. Really looking forward to Augusta. Again, kind of going back to Tiger Woods, I think that's his best chance of winning, his best major chance of winning for upcoming events. And you really see a level playing field. It's a lot of experience that it takes, knowledge on the golf course when it comes to Augusta. So it kind of opens up the field. It's not like a U.S. Open where you pretty much reduce the field to, your top 5 players that really have a chance.
I got to agree with you, Marty. That is his bread and butter. Thank you for joining me. It's always a pleasure getting to chat with you about golf.
Thanks for having me. Take care, Evan.
Now our Connor Chan will take a look at your weather forecast.
All right, thanks very much, Jasmine. Take a look at temperature, still sitting at that 17-degree mark as we move out a little further west. Edmonton at 19, Edson and Whitecourt also sitting at 17 degrees. We also see 16 degrees out in Red Deer and Rocky Mountain House, 18 degrees out in Jasper, 17 right now for Cold Lake as well. Over in the Saskatchewan areas right now, Prince Albert and Melfort and Saskatoon all sitting at 19 degrees, just shy of the 20-degree mark, 18 in North Battleford and 16 out in Meadow Lake. As we move up north a little bit, 14 degrees for the Losh and in Buffalo Narrows with 13 in and La Ronge. We also see 16 out in Flin Flon as well. South End at 13 right now, with Stony Rapids at 10 and Wollaston Lakes sitting at 11 degrees. Uranium City in single digits right now, sitting at 9 degrees. As we move over to northern Alberta right now, 17 for Grand Prairie with 16 in Peace River and Fort McMurray, 18 degrees for Slave Lake and 13 for Fort Chipewyan, with high level also sitting at 14 degrees. Now, it's a little bit cooler in the southern areas of Alberta, as we see in Lethbridge sitting at 13 degrees compared to what they were at 20 degrees yesterday. Medicine Hat also shy of the 20-degree mark, sitting at 17 right now. Calgary sitting at 16 with Banff at 18, and then up in Coronation we see at 17-degree mark there. And then over in the Saskatchewan areas, in the southern areas, it's 23, in both Moose Jaw and Regina. Estevan fairly warm still, sitting at 28 degrees. Yorkton at 25 right now, with Swift Current at 20 and Kindersley sitting at 18 degrees. Now, as we look across the rest of the country, fairly warm in Winnipeg, sitting at the 30-degree mark right now, with 20 degrees in Toronto with some cloud coverage, as we see mostly cloud coverage across the eastern provinces as well as into the Maritimes, with 10 degrees in St. John's and 11 in Halifax, St. John's, also with some showers as well. Edmonton has some clear skies at 19 degrees, 20 degrees in Vancouver right now, with 11 also up in Yellowknife and Whitehorse as well. Now, as we look over into tomorrow, we're going to have a fairly warm day in the area. We're just shy of the 20-degree mark, so we'll be at 19 for tomorrow. We'll see 20-degree marks in Vermilion and St. Paul, 19 also in Bonnyville, Cold Lake, and Pearceland as well. Vegreville at 21 tomorrow, with Provo sitting at 22, along with Macklin as well. Maidstone also sitting at 20 degrees tomorrow, as well as in North Battleford and Meadow Lake. 19 degrees, for Green Lake, and 17 up in Isle La Crosse. So here's what we could see over the next 7 days. We could get some rain on Friday with that high of 18 degrees. 17 on Thursday, though, with a pretty warm morning for the most part. 54% chance, though, of some rain on Friday. 16 on Saturday. A little bit more cloud coverage on Sunday and Monday, with that high of 15 and 14 there. And then 13 degrees on Tuesday, as we are going to start to see a little bit cooler mornings as we are getting close to October. That is a first look at, that's a look at your 7-day forecast, and we'll be right back with more primetime local news.
I'm joined today with Tyler McMurtry from SGI. Tyler, thanks for taking some time to talk with me today.
Always happy to talk to you, Jace.
So the focus of our discussion today is the August Traffic Safety Spotlight on Impaired Driving. First of all, can you just talk to me a little bit about this spotlight and what you guys are looking at?
Sure. The August Traffic Safety Spotlight was focused on impaired driving. Impaired driving is one of the leading causes of injuries, and actually it is the leading cause of fatality on Saskatchewan roads. And it's something that we focus on quite frequently because it is still a serious concern. We have seen improvements in impaired driving numbers when it comes to collisions, injuries, and fatalities here in Saskatchewan over the past decade. But the fact that police were still able to catch 463 drivers and issue those that number of offenses in a single month tells us that not everyone has gotten the message.
So when it comes to impaired driving, what are some tips that people can take into practice to help prevent impaired driving? Obviously, I think just not drinking and driving is an easy one, but what are some other tips that people can take into practice?
Right, and we all have a role to play when it comes to changing the culture of impaired driving. And we've seen that happen here in Saskatchewan. We've seen many people make that decision for themselves to never get behind the wheel when they've been drinking or consuming drugs. But there are other things you can do as well. I mean, it goes beyond just yourself. You can look to your friends and your family, and if any of them are driving impaired or about to drive impaired, be a good wingman and intervene. Make sure that they don't get behind the wheel when they are in no condition to drive. There's also things that you can do when you're out on the road and you spot an impaired driver or a driver you suspect is impaired. We encourage people to call 911 and report that impaired driver with as many of the details about the vehicle, the behavior of the driver, a description of the driver, a license plate number, direction the vehicle is traveling, that sort of thing. You can report impaired drivers. Police do appreciate getting those tips, and a number of charges get laid every single year as a result of tips from the public. So those are two big things that you can do. But when it comes to just your own personal choices, again, making that choice that you're never going to drive impaired, that you can offer to be the designated driver for your friends or your family. You can offer somebody a couch to crash on for the night if they're if they've had a few and shouldn't be driving. There's a lot of things that you can do, but it always comes down to making a plan beforehand. So if you're going to be doing anything that involves alcohol or drugs, just make a plan for a safe ride home.
And I know you mentioned that over the past decade, there's been a drop in injuries and fatalities caused by accidents caused by impaired driving. And we still see that number of 463 people that committed impaired driving offenses over the past month. Is that number above where we've seen in previous months? What's that looking like?
So every month, typically when police report the number of impaired drivers caught, and we get those numbers every single month, and every month it's typically between 300 to 450. Sometimes it can go a bit beyond that, especially in a month like in August when they're focusing on catching impaired drivers. They may run a few extra enforcement initiatives that are targeting impaired driving, maybe check stops, maybe unmarked vehicles outside of licensed establishments, other things. So when police are focused on something, they're going to catch people doing it. So even though we have seen fewer people, we think driving impaired, and that's evidenced by the drop in collisions, the drop in injuries, and the drop in fatalities that we've seen year over year over the past decade. We've seen that number come down. Last year in 2019, it was the lowest number that we have on record when it comes to impaired driving. 21 people lost their lives, but that 21 is still 21 too many. And we know we've seen a culture change, but we also know that there is still work to do.
And when you talk about still work to do, obviously this month was focused on impaired driving, but I was looking at some of the other numbers when it comes to speeding and aggressive driving, distracted driving, seatbelt offenses. They were still, seatbelt offenses and distracted driving, those were over 500. Just talk a bit about some of the other issues and dangerous practices that Saskatchewan drivers also take part in sometimes.
Sure. So when we're talking about the big four, when it comes to factors that impact people on our roads and result in people losing their lives, it's impaired driving, distracted driving, speeding, and seatbelts and child seats. So those are the big four that we focus on month in and month out here at SGI. And so we want to talk about the numbers that we saw in August. We did see numbers that are, I would say, within the range of what we typically see. We have seen distracted driving offenses come down since last year when they were averaging close to 900 per month. And in some months, they were well above 1,000. We set some new records when it came to single month reporting for distracted driving offenses in Saskatchewan. But then when the stiffer penalties were announced in November, they came in February of 2020, but they were announced in November of 19. We saw those numbers really drop significantly. And so they are lower than they've been, but they're higher than we'd like. Let's put it that way. In August of 2020, last month, the month for the results we're talking about, we also saw seatbelt offenses, seatbelt and child seat offenses, because there's a number of different occupant restraint offenses. Driver not wearing a seatbelt, passenger not wearing a seatbelt, passenger under 16 not wearing a seatbelt, and then having the small children not properly restrained in a booster seat or an appropriate 5-point harness kind of thing. So when we add all those ones up, we saw 576 offenses, most of which had to do with drivers not wearing their seatbelts. Now, in the year 2020, more than 4 decades after seatbelts became the law in Saskatchewan, it is a bit mind-blowing that you can find that many people in 1 month in the province of Saskatchewan not wearing a seatbelt, especially when we know that seatbelts, it's science. You should wear a seatbelt. It is the quickest, easiest thing you can do to greatly improve your chances of surviving a collision on our roads. And there is hardly any good excuse to not wear a seatbelt, barring a medical condition that prevents you from wearing one. But if you're in a vehicle and it's got a seatbelt, you should be wearing that seatbelt, because it is it's one of the ways that you're going to survive a collision. And people need to keep in mind that even if they think that they're the world's best driver and they'll never cause a collision, sometimes those factors are beyond your control. There are other drivers, there's wildlife, there are unseen mechanical issues that you might not be aware of with your vehicle. There could be road conditions that cause you to be in a collision. So it's not always in your control, but what is in your control is buckling up.
Yeah, we talked, I believe, probably last month, and that was something I said is I can't believe the number when it comes to seatbelting, because my entire life seatbelts have been there, and it's kind of like you don't even think about it, you just put the seatbelt on. But thanks for taking some time to talk with me again today, Tyler. It's always great to talk with you.
Yeah, great. And I love talking seatbelts with you, Jason. We're going to keep talking about it as long as people aren't buckling up. Let me tell you.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm joined once again with Becca Lawrence from the Lloydminster and District SPCA. How are you doing this week, Becca?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. So who do we have here today? We got a little cat in today.
Yeah, this little guy is Newt. So he came into the shelter a little while ago as a stray. He was found, all by himself without his mom. He was sick. And yeah, so he went into foster. And now he's all happy and healthy and ready to find his new forever home.
Well, that's good to hear. And how is he with the other animals at the shelter, like with the other cats? Does he share a cat condo with any other cats, or is he kind of more of a solo guy?
Yeah, no, he does share a condo with another cat named Yo-Yo, and they look pretty much identical. Like if I wouldn't say it, like if I didn't know any better, I would say they're probably from the same litter, but they're in a single strays, and they seem to be getting along okay now. Yes, he was fine, but she was a little unsure about sharing her space with him. But I mean, so far they're getting pretty good.
And he seems to be pretty good with people as well, right? I mean, we were talking a little bit off camera as well, and he has been sitting nice and pretty the whole time, hasn't been, too rambunctious. So he's obviously good with people as well, Becca?
Yeah, I think I'm using his kryptonite right now, scratching his ear because he was kind of trying to bounce all over the place here just before we started to record. So we're doing pretty good right now, and but yeah, obviously the whole head scratches here are kind of slowing him down.
Well, there you go, a little sweet boy that you can manipulate with scratches. So how are you guys doing as far as cat numbers? I know that last time that we spoke, I know you guys were basically full. So how are you doing? Have you had some more adoptions go out the door?
Yeah, I think in the last couple of weeks we've done about 16 adoptions, so that's good. We still have them coming in. Obviously, like our majority of our animals, our kennels here, they are pretty much full. So we are hoping for more adoptions here, or we might start another event sort of thing. But a majority of our animals are in foster right now, so we have lots of kittens that are in fosters.
Beautiful. All right. Well, if anybody out there is looking for a cat or, wants to help foster, definitely stop by. I know the animals there would certainly appreciate it. How are you guys doing for dogs, Becca? I know you were fortunately getting low on numbers last time we spoke. So how are things going?
Yeah, actually, we have no dogs up for adoption or even viewing. We have 2 dogs in the back that are just waiting to be medically cleared. But they're happy little fellas. They're back there too. But obviously we have our little Papillon Chihuahua crosses that are full of surgeries today. So as long as everything is good and looking good with their surgery decisions, they are going to be going up tomorrow, or we'll start calling their specials. They have quite a few holds on each of them. So, but yeah, other than that, we have 0 dogs on the floor.
And I did see them on Instagram, and they did look adorable. Yeah. So, and I know we were speaking as well about you guys have a CCAN, right, that you wanted to get painted, and you guys were looking for artists, and Zoe mentioned you guys were still looking. So have you guys found enough people? Are you still, putting the All Points Bulletin out there, per se?
We've actually had a couple artists contact us, and so in that aspect, it's been really good. But we've had our AGM coming up here and a few other things going on. So the weather has kind of been a little wishy-washy, so I haven't really been too eager on trying to get it started. So we might wait until the spring, but I think we are going to try and at least get our SPCA on there. It is all painted white, so it's ready to go. So I mean, if weather kind of keeps looking the next couple weeks, then I think I'll definitely try and push everyone really fast and see what we can do. But as of right now, we might make spring just in case.
Absolutely, that's fair. So any artists out there in the border city, you know, certainly contact the SPCA and maybe start getting some sketches in your notepad in case you have to wait until spring to do that. And one last question before we go, Becca. I always like to ask if you guys are looking for any specific item donations. You know, kitty food, obviously, you said you guys are pretty much full of cats. So is there, you know, do you guys need litter, blankets, cat toys? What are you looking for at the SPCA this week?
Yeah, our biggest one obviously that we go through is food and litter. So I mean, kitten food, adult cat food, and even the wet food that we're starting to go through quite a bit now here as well too. So that's definitely high on the list. And litter, like I said, we use on clay litter, and then we also use the wooden pellets. We buy them at Rona. So they're used for smokers, things like that. So we use those for litter. So that's something we can definitely use. And even we're actually even just putting a shout out for if anyone in becoming a board member. Okay. So we are looking for board members as well, if it's something that you're interested in.
Beautiful. All right. So there you go, guys. There is lots that you can do to help out the SPCA. Once again, thank you so much for joining us this week, Becca, and we will see you again next week.
Perfect. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you.
Manage your waste and recyclables with Quick Pick Waste Disposal. 100% locally owned and proud to serve and support the communities we call home. Quick Pick, the convenient solution to avoid pollution.
All right, taking one last look here at your weather forecast. As we look ahead into tomorrow, we could see a daytime high there around that 19 to 20 degree range. We go into Thursday with a high of 17 there. We're going to have a little bit of sun for the most part up until Friday, where we are expected to have some showers there around that 54% mark there. 16 degrees on Saturday as we get a little bit more clear there, but we'll see some increased cloud coverage on Sunday through Tuesday there. As you can see, 15 on Sunday, 14 degrees on Monday, and then 16 on Tuesday. We could also see some of those showers starting in the later parts of Thursday as well as leading into Friday as well, as we could see some of those showers continuing on there. We're still around the average mark for our daytime high around this time of year with that 15 and then averaging around 3 for our daytime lows. So we're a little bit above average for our daytime lows, but it's going to get a little cooler as we get into the later parts of the month and into next week.
Thanks for joining us on Primetime Local News. Have a great night.